Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar organized by the European Toolkit for Schools. My name is Cosmin Nada, and I will be moderating and hosting this webinar. I am a researcher in education at the Center of Research and Intervention in Education at the University of Porto. And I also act as an editorial board member of the European Toolkit for Schools and an expert committee member of the NESET network, which is the network of experts working on the social dimension of education and training. And there are quite a lot of links between NESET and also the European Toolkit for Schools. So that's why I'm mentioning also this information, so you can situate a little bit the context of this webinar. I will make a very, very short presentation of the European Toolkit for Schools for you to have an idea what it is and also what has been done in the field of inclusive education when it comes to the toolkit. And I am sure that if something is wrong, my colleagues will inform. You should be able to see the presentation. So today's webinar is entitled Creating Safe, Inclusive, and Caring Learning Environments. And as I was mentioning, it is organized in the framework of the European Toolkit for Schools. And the European Toolkit for Schools, it is now placed on the European School Education Platform. The European Toolkit for Schools emerged very much in connection with the issue of inclusive education and tackling early school leaving. And more recently, its focus has been broadened, and we are now looking more into the issue of school success, inclusive education, of course, but also well-being at school. The European Toolkit for Schools has the idea of a whole school approach at the very center, and some of you may be already familiar with the whole school approach. This view where all members of the school community engage in a cohesive, collective, and collaborative action, and where there is a strong cross-sectoral cooperation with a wide range of stakeholders. And as you can see in this illustration, the student is placed at the center of all these efforts and the work that these different stakeholders are doing in an articulated way. The European Toolkit for Schools was created in 2016. It was part of the School Education Gateway that is now in the process of extinction and is being replaced, as I was telling you, by the European School Education Platform. And this European Toolkit for Schools is aimed for school heads, teachers, policymakers, basically anybody working in or with schools. And the main idea is to disseminate promising practices. Sometimes there are really exceptional measures, exceptional projects being developed in European countries or even beyond Europe that we simply do not know about. And the idea is to disseminate these good practices in order to inspire educational practitioners, stakeholders, policymakers in other countries, and eventually plan similar measures, similar projects, or even liaising with the original ideas and people who are promoting those projects and creating networks of collaboration. There are 6 key areas in the toolkit in order to improve collaboration and implement this whole school approach. And we are looking at school governance as a big category, teachers, support to learners, involvement of parents and families, involvement of other stakeholders, and lastly, and most recently, the new category that was added to the toolkit, well-being and mental health in school. In terms of a few examples of what has been done in this area of inclusive education, and today's webinar has a rather broad title. We will, however, focus, of course, on the creation of safe and inclusive learning environments for all students, but we will focus more on migrant and displaced children. And in this field, as you can see here, these are print screens from the previous platform where the toolkit was placed. We have been looking into the issue of mental health and well-being of refugee pupils through connection and continuity, and actually trying to understand what works in welcoming refugees in European classrooms. There was also an ESSET report written by Anya Siarova entitled Education Intervention Supporting Newly Arrived Migrant and Displaced Children in Their Language Learning Needs. One of my colleagues will share with you links to the European Toolkit for Schools in the chat, and also to all these resources that I just mentioned. We also had last year on the 6th of May, a webinar entitled Welcoming Newly Arrived Refugees in the Classroom, and the recording is available online. And again, you will receive the link in the chat. And a document with guidelines for supporting the inclusion of displaced children from Ukraine in education, considerations, key principles and practices for the school year 2022-2023. And this document was prepared in response to the start of the war in Ukraine last year. And it's a very, very relevant document that I encourage you all to consult. And we finally come to today's webinar, Creating Safe, Inclusive and Caring Learning Environments, during which we will count on the contribution of Tiffy Allen from Schools of Sanctuary Ireland, Martin Henry, who is principal of St. Nettis College in Ireland, and Marie Stephens, who represents today the EDINA project. But before I give the floor to these speakers, we would like first to know you a little bit better. So I would ask participants to simply write in the chat the countries where you are based and from where you are connecting now. And I will also start a Mentimeter, because we are very interested in knowing what is your professional role. So whom we are addressing today, to whom we are speaking today, it's very important for us to understand. So I will give you a few minutes to answer this question. I believe you should be able to see my screen still. Excellent. And you can go to menti.com and use the code written on my screen, which is 21805333. And please answer to this question: what is your professional role? It's like a multiple choice form that you can simply select the category. If you don't identify with any of the categories presented, you have an other option that you can, of course, clarify then in the chat. And I see that the quicker ones already started to respond. We have 2 answers. We are, however, I see now more than 100 participants in this webinar. It's a great number, so I will wait a little bit longer to receive more responses. But we can see already from this initial screen that we have a few teachers, we have a policymaker, we have an other, that somebody who wrote others, they can clarify what is their professional role in the chat. And we have also a representative of school staff. And now we are getting more answers towards teachers and another policymaker. So our expectation of having today quite a few teachers, I believe it is being met. So we have prepared for a more practical webinar, providing insights on this topic that we are discussing today. So I think we can stick with our original plan. We have also a researcher, 2 school leaders, and indeed many teachers. Thank you so much to all of you for answering this question. And then we have another question for you that will also help us and the speakers today to understand a little bit better what are your expectations, what are your needs from this webinar today. So what topics or issues you would like to learn more about today? Here you can simply write the topics that you are interested in. So we are getting teachers is quite broad, but we can think perhaps about the role of the teachers in creating safe and supportive learning environments. We have inclusion strategies, we have teacher again, new teaching strategies, all the topics, inclusive, that we can consider also under the same umbrella of inclusion examples and inclusion strategies. So very much around inclusion and teaching strategies, teaching methods, safe environment, indeed, well-being in school, helping, and now the word cloud is growing and growing. However, it is visible indeed that inclusion is at the core of your interests today. Psychosocial support, in fact, is also very relevant. Evaluation, empathy. Okay, I think this gives us quite a good idea regarding the expectations from today's webinar. Thank you so much for answering to these questions. And now I believe I can already give the floor to Martin, who will make a brief introduction of his school. And then we will also watch a very short video, a 4-minute video, after which I will give back the floor to Martin and then to Tiffy. So Martin, please. You are muted, Martin. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to meet with you all. My name is Martin Henry. I'm principal of St. Nathan's College, which is on the west coast of Ireland. And we're one of the schools to be most recently recognised as a school of sanctuary, a champion school of sanctuary. And for us here in St. Nathan's, that means recognising the efforts that every member of staff makes to extend a warm welcome, to a secure, safe environment, and a caring place where everybody is included who comes to our school. And for the past number of years, we've welcomed many, many students who have come to live in Ireland under the International Protection Programme, many of them coming from Syria, Afghanistan, Sierra Leone, Ukraine more recently, and many other places. There are a total of 28 nationalities among the student population here in the school. And for us here as a staff and as a community, as a school community, it has been very much about extending a welcome to each of these students who come to us. Our students are primarily teenagers. They are 12 to 18 years of age. And for many of them, it is their first time to enter into an education setting here in Ireland or in anywhere in Europe. So in that sense, it's a very new experience for them. And it's an experience which can be quite daunting and challenging. And there's in the need, therefore, to extend a sincere welcome and support for them, so that they know that they're truly welcome in our school, and it's a sanctuary, a very safe place for them, many of them coming from a place of great trauma where they have experienced the hardship of war and conflict. And what we want them to know is, having made this long, long journey, that they're in a very safe place where they will be cared for, first of all, and where we will support them to continue their education. So we're going to see in a few moments a short video of life here in St. Nathan's College. and it depicts students coming from a variety of cultures and backgrounds who come to school to study here. We've used technology to our advantage, as we're all doing today. We're able to connect from various parts of the world, but we've been able to use it as well to communicate effectively in English with students, so that students who perhaps aren't proficient in the use of English can access texts like Shakespeare and so on to learn English better after arriving in Ireland. So we are going to look at a short video which shows us putting some of these teaching methodologies, which many of you mentioned in the chat earlier, that you'd like to maybe just become more aware of. And we have, in this way, we extend that welcome and that inclusive approach to everybody who comes to the school, so that they're not made to feel in any way different or to be in any kind of special category, that they're very much the same as the students who have come here and lived here all their lives. So we might just watch maybe a short video. There's two phrases maybe in the video that are maybe not very widely known. So the students, when they come here, as I mentioned, they come under the International Protection Programme, and they live in emergency accommodation, which we often refer to as an EROC centre. EROC is EROC, and that stands for an Emergency Orientation and Reception Centre. And that's where these students with their families live when they come to Ireland, and where they stay with their families while they're coming to school here with us. And the other term here in school is EAL, that's also used in the video, just to explain that's English as an additional language, because many of these people do not have English as the spoken language at home, and it's their first time to engage with it. So just those two phrases are used in the video, and maybe just to help you as you watch it. So I invite maybe Cosmin to share the video with you, and I'll come back to you at the end. Thank you.
Martina Payden, and I am an English teacher here at St. Nathan's College. So our school is incredibly unique. As of last September 2023, we now have a cohort of 29 different nationalities and languages within our school. We are about 1 kilometre from our EROC centre. So our school's relationship with EROC is exceptionally important in terms of our ability to welcome our refugee students, and also that students get a feel for our school before they ever set foot into us on, say, their first official day. We're very aware that a lot of these students had huge gaps in their education, and then it's important to mention too that there are students who may never have been in any kind of formal setting as regards education. Usually what we would do is we would meet with students and parents on an individual basis. This year, for example, we used translators to either digital technology translators or an official translator to meet and greet with parents and students. We help them with maybe organizing books, facilitating them with organizing a uniform, or providing them with parts of the uniform if that's possible for us to do so, to giving them maybe a tour of the school, and really trying to involve them and make them feel welcome before, as I said, they set foot here on their first day, because we are a very large school, and we also make them aware that, you know, we do have 29 different nationalities here, and that they won't in any way feel different because they're coming into our school from another country or with another language or culture.
More than 700 students attend St Nathan's College in Ballahadreen in Roscommon. There are 27 nationalities in the school, amongst them teenagers from Syria and Afghanistan. They came here under the Irish Refugee Protection Programme in the past year and are living nearby in emergency accommodation.
I come to hear another language, a new people, new friend. Yeah.
Morning, Ahmed. How are you?
School is very much a sanctuary for these students fleeing warfare, and getting an education is key.
I want to be an accountant or something like businesswoman in the future.
Pupils log into a live PowerPoint presentation, and as the teacher speaks, the information goes into their phones in real time and in their own language. Today, Shakespeare is being translated into Arabic, but the English text remains visible as well.
They want to learn, go on to third level. They have dreams, they have ideas, they have plans, and just to be part of that and be able to work with such wonderful children is a privilege.
I'm so happy because now I'm in Ireland, because I can come to school, I can go outside, and I'm so free. When I was in Afghanistan, Taliban, they say you can go to school, you have to stay at home.
I've learned a lot more about different cultures because of my friends, and especially some of my best friends.
This was the old-style, traditional diocesan Catholic secondary school, boarding, all boys, and we have come a long way. We have evolved we have a very, very diverse student population now.
Teresa Mannion, RTE News, Ballahadreen, County Roscommon.
So thank you, Cosmin, for sharing that. In the video, you will have observed at the very end our sanctuary wall, which summarises for many people here what our approach is of extending a hand of friendship, of showing a warmth and a care towards all of these students and indeed their families when they arrive. And very often it's the practical nature of assisting students with books, uniform, showing them where things are, making sure that the food that's available within the school is in keeping with their own culture, and that it's something that they can easily recognize. So it becomes a place of refuge, a place of shelter, and ultimately what the students describe coming here as a journey that gives them hope, a hope to keep the possibility of a bright future ahead of them. And I think that's ultimately what it means to be a school of sanctuary for us. People here to give people that sense that there is purpose, that there is an opportunity and a wonderful journey ahead of them, despite all the hardship that they have endured in their very, very young lives. So there's many challenges when people come to a new country where there's a new different culture, where there's a different language. So it's really about trying to get to know them. Their names are sometimes the very first point of contact, where their names are something a little bit very unlike our own. But getting to know them, calling somebody by their name, has an enormous value and gives people a real sense of sanctuary. And that's what we love in terms of being practical in welcoming these students. It's not, of course, there's an element of the curriculum and all of that, but that's very much secondary when these people arrive. As a school of sanctuary, we want them to feel safe and secure, and above all, to be happy. And when they're happy and when they feel safe, then they can learn and they can make real progress and grow as people and develop and have enjoy the benefits really of great personal development in their own lives. So this journey, this approach to this practical approach of meeting them exactly where they're at and taking and walking step by step with them through a new journey is really one that's hope-filled. It's full of opportunity, and it's one that we find that from the feedback we receive, that it's one that gives them real strength to continue forward in life. And whatever this message can go from today's webinar is for everybody who's embracing diversity and who's developing an inclusive school. It's really about taking things one step at a time, and then nothing is really too big to overcome, because many of these students have huge challenges in life in terms of the difficulties they've come from in war and so on. So it's small steps, but consistent, going in a good direction. So I hope that gives a small insight. It's very brief. I do appreciate that, into our school and into the role that we try to promote and support to make this a real sanctuary for all our students. So thank you. I know Tiffy is going to follow me on from the School of Sanctuary Ireland.
Thank you so much, Martin, and I would like to also join the audience who is applauding massively the work that you are doing. So thank you so much for this inspirational example, and then for your advice. And indeed, now we can listen to Tiffy, who has a presentation that I will be sharing very soon. So Tiffy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Cosmin, and thank you so much, Martin. Yeah, my name is Tiffy, and I've been involved with this Schools of Sanctuary program for over 10 years now in Ireland and in the UK. And perhaps my background is in teaching in Europe, the Middle East, and East Africa. So that's just a little bit about me. And the background of this sanctuary movement is the underlying idea is to create a culture of welcome, inclusion, safety, and belonging. And I use the word culture quite carefully, because Schools of Sanctuary is not a project that you take on and then you drop it and you do something else next year. It's not even a program. It's something that runs through the life of the school. And a school like Martin's, which has been awarded nationally as a champion School of Sanctuary. We now have 24 champion Schools of Sanctuary in Ireland. And these schools actually go way beyond the call of duty. After they've been awarded, they do even more. I know that Martin, for example, is sharing the message of being a School of Sanctuary with primary schools in the small town where his school is situated. So Schools of Sanctuary come within this wider sanctuary movement. Schools of Sanctuary are places where I love what you shared at the beginning, Cosmin, about the whole school approach, because that's one of the first things we say to schools. And everyone, we work with primary schools, secondary schools. We even have a couple of creches or kindergartens that have got involved. And the Schools of Sanctuary principles work at all age groups. We are currently working on, and I'll say something more about this in a minute, on making stronger links between the secondary schools and the universities of Sanctuary, of which we have about 9, I believe, at the moment in Ireland. And that's quite a significant proportion of the universities in Ireland. And this culture of welcome is something that is counter to the tendency in some countries. And unfortunately here in Ireland, you may have seen Ireland on the news last week for all the wrong reasons, because there is a lot of movement towards racism, towards hate, towards polarization. And this culture of welcome is absolutely vital in equipping young people to be really, really knowledgeable about the issues that are there, equipping young people to have met and understood what refugees really are. And it's something, like I said, that runs through the whole school. So I'm just going to quickly go on to some of the practical sides. You've got exactly the right page, Cosmin. Thank you very much. So the principles of all branches of Sanctuary, whether it's universities of Sanctuary, schools of Sanctuary, we also have things like faith places of Sanctuary and gardens of Sanctuary and so on. But the key principles are these three little words: learn, action, and share. And these are the ways that this culture is made practical in the life of a school. So learning, obviously learning is something that schools do anyway. So what a school will typically do is look at the curriculum, look at the things that are going on in the school, and look at ways that the school population can learn, first of all, about the different cultures that are that are represented in the school. So, for example, I can think of a school not very far from where I am, and they have identified 35 languages spoken by young people in the school when they go home. And a group of students who are very fond of decorating and so on have made a whole wall. It's called the language wall. And this wall displays welcome in all 35, I think it's 35 languages. When a new language turns up in the school, then they will make quite a big thing of working with the new person and getting their language up there. And then very often a class might take on a project of deciding, okay, so this week we're all going to greet each other in Pashto when we come to school. You know, we're all going to say hello and welcome in Pashto. So they learn little phrases, and this is really, really affirming for people who are coming from other language groups, that their language is recognized, that people are even making an effort to speak it. We've had 2 or 3 schools that have performed songs in Ukrainian, learning it from scratch, you know, and one of them has actually made it to the final of a big national competition. So everyone's excited about that. Learning. The other area of learning is learning about international protection and forced migration. There is a lot of misinformation, certainly here in Ireland, and I would imagine in many countries, about refugees and migrants, an awful lot of misinformation. And so we make the information readily available, and it's available at lots of different levels. So, for example, the youngest children in school, one thing that often happens, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this movie, but there's a very popular movie called Paddington Bear. Does that ring bells with any parents out there? I can see a few nods. And Paddington needed sanctuary when he came, and that's something that young people will relate to. Another key tool in the learning is our Sanctuary Ambassadors. Now, Sanctuary Ambassadors is a program that runs alongside Schools of Sanctuary, but these are people from a refugee background who we give special training to them, and they can go into schools and share their story. We have seen again and again the proof that the best way to help people to understand refugees is to meet a refugee. And again, there's a primary school near me that ended up becoming the first champion primary school in Ireland, actually, a few years back. And on their journey, they brought in 2 asylum seekers, one lady from Sudan and one from Syria. And they came and met the whole school, 700 children aged from 5 to 11. And they shared something about their families. These kids sitting on the floor were completely silent as they listened to these ladies. And moreover, I think that was 4 years ago. Some of those children are in the top classes of the schools now. They still remember hearing those stories. A couple of weeks later, one of I think the Sudanese lady, contacted me, and she said, you know, today I met one of the children from that school in a shop. We live in a small town called Gorey. And this child came up to her and said, "It's nice to see you. Thank you for coming for our school. And are you okay? Are you allowed to stay here?" And this child introduced my friend, the asylum seeker, to her mum. So you can see how these school children can become ambassadors themselves. So there's lots and lots of areas of learning. We've got a whole booklet on it, and on the whole, when you get to see the whole slideshow, you'll see those. The next one is action. So if we can just go onto the action page, or there, wherever you like. With the actions, it's really important, we have found, to let this be quite driven by the children and let the kids come up with their ideas. Just a couple of examples. We have a school that is now a champion school of sanctuary. It's a primary school. It has a speciality in receiving children who are autistic, and it also is it's a port called Rosslare, and so there are many Ukrainians there, and there is also a center there for asylum seekers. So they have a really diverse population with many different needs, and it is so touching to go to the school and to see the sanctuary committee made up of children from all these groups. And it was one of the children who suffers from autism who made a suggestion: let's have a rota where some of us go out every morning to welcome the bus that is bringing in the Ukrainian children. And they've been doing that for over a year now. This group of children, obviously they're supervised by a teacher, but the idea came completely from the children. So actions like this, you are amazed the kind of actions that people come up with. Embedded with all these actions are many ways of working the sanctuary idea into the curriculum. And I won't go into them all now, but those of you who are teachers might have some ideas about that now. Now, I'm an English teacher. It's really easy if you're an English teacher. There's loads of books you can do and this kind of thing. But one of the actions from a science teacher, I noticed someone on the chat said they're a science teacher, came from a group of students. And here in Ireland, we have a big competition every year. It's called the Young Scientist of the Year. And it's a group of secondary school children who've come up with an innovative idea related to science. And those who get past a certain hurdle go to a big final in Dublin, and they're all televised. And anyway, a group of children from a champion school of sanctuary, these were 15 to 16-year-olds, and they were doing science. They went up to their science teacher with a plan, which has now been accepted, so they will be at the final. Their plan was to do with well-being, that they came up with a survey about well-being. They have distributed this survey to people who have come into the country while they are in school. So it's confined to people, whether they're refugees or migrants, but they've joined the school from other countries, not from Irish schools. And it's asking them questions about their well-being. And then they are sharing the same survey with schools that have nothing to do with the sanctuary network. And their plan is to compare these and to come up with, they're hoping, some really good evidence about schools of sanctuary. You know, you think, wow, where do these ideas come from? So there's so much.
Sorry to interrupt you. I need to ask you, even though it's fascinating what you are telling us, I need to ask you to wrap up in 1 minute, and then we will have more time during the Q&A. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. I'm going to wrap up in 1 minute with just 3 little examples. One of them is a Syrian girl in one of the schools of sanctuary. She arrived in Ireland when she was 14. She fairly quickly showed a real aptitude at art, and the school helped her to get a scholarship to do a special course in art. She came up with 5 paintings called My Memories. And these are oil paintings of her journey from Syria to Ireland, which took 3 years. And you can imagine the kind of things that are on the paintings. These paintings were displayed in the in Wexford during the time of the International Opera Festival. So that's how widely they were seen. Another example is a Ukrainian who has got lady, she's a mother who has gone into several schools to support and talk about schools of sanctuary. And she was an English teacher in Ukraine. And last week, she got a job in one of the schools teaching English. So it's just such a win for all of us. And the final one is 3 girls who came from Syria, Georgia, and Sudan, and they entered school when they were just 1 year off their final year. So they did 2 years in school. They all got their English really good. They were high achievers academically, but they had a barrier for going to 3rd level because they had not been in Ireland for 3 years. I think this barrier exists in your countries as well. But because of the link between schools and universities of sanctuary, all 3 of them got sanctuary scholarships, and they're all very happy 3rd level students now. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tiffy, for this talk. It's indeed very interesting and very hard for me to have to stop you. Marie now will talk about the EDINA project. You have 15 to 20 minutes, Marie, as we agreed.
I have to find the that's not the right one. I just share my screen. Here it is with a full screen view. Yeah. So I will present briefly the EDINA project. EDINA stands for Education of International Newly Arrived Migrant Pupils. I'm from now on the new coordinator of this project. It's an Erasmus Plus project existing already for 6 years. We recently obtained 3 more years funded by Erasmus Plus starting next month. So we will have new development in the project in the 3 next years. At first, we were focused on language teachers. The main aim is to support teachers working with migrant pupils. And so at first we were focusing on language teachers, and now for the 3 next years, we will extend the scope of our work to mainstream teachers, so teachers of mathematics, history, geography, and so on. So all topics. And even for them, we still focus on the language of schooling in interaction with home languages. The partners of the project are disseminated in Europe. From now on, we are working with the Netherlands, with Belgium, the 2 parts, so French-speaking and Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, with partners in Spain and in Ireland. So maybe we can make links with Tiffy and Martin. The partners are universities, schools, and municipalities in those regions. And the list of our partners has evolved during the 6 years of the project from now. For example, we had a partner in Finland, but the needs of teachers in Finland are very specific. So the partner, the Finnish partner left. And we had also partners in the UK, but because of Brexit, they cannot be full partners anymore, but they are still involved as associate partners that Leeds Beckett University and Leeds City Council. But so we have also the Municipality of Ghent in Belgium, or University of Liège, for example, where I am now, and the school in Dublin, and so on and so forth. So schools, municipalities, and universities working together in the framework of the project. So the main goals are to support at first the reception and integration, and then the schooling of newly arrived migrant pupils by helping teachers, by identifying teachers' competences, and by developing teachers' competences. That's the main idea, and the very ultimate result will be to improve prospects of pupils and also their well-being and their integration in the society they were living in, so that they can increase their future potential. That's the idea. So here is the one screenshot of the EDINA platform we have. So all the material we have developed is available on the EDINA platform. It's still in progress, so if you say some mistakes there, that will be corrected in the next steps of the project. It's now available in 5 languages, and it contains mainly scientific studies, but also self-assessment exercises, recommendations, pupil stories in the portraits session. Also, we have some Padlets to let you share your best practices and to see the good practices of the others. And we found some interesting readings for you to make, and those are commented. And all those types of material are distributed among the most important topics related to NAMS education. So arrival, the background of the pupils, the assessment processes, differentiation in the classroom, contact with parents, teamwork between teachers, intercultural skills, and so on. So this is, for example, a Padlet page about background, so how to value pupils' background. In other words, how to exploit home languages into the classroom, and you have some examples there, and you can definitely add your own examples if you want. And we have a template, so you see up on the page the Padlet form. We have a template to share good practices. What are we doing, and what will we do in the 3 coming years? We have a more scientific part, let's say, and that's about distributing surveys to gather data among teachers, to objectify their needs, and to inventory the current practices. So what do they do in the partner countries for now in terms of welcoming and supporting migrant pupils? So that's the first main part of our job. We also maintain close contacts with local and European authorities to discuss also the NAMS education at the policy level. And we have a third main part, which is about directly helping teachers, developing and gathering material to help teachers. And so we have reflection tools for teachers, practical pieces of advice, the good practice sharing space, and we have also a nice tool, which is a perpetual calendar with suggestions. So you have week per week concrete suggestions to help your pupils, and it's perpetual, so you don't have precise dates on it, so that you can keep using this calendar year after year. If you are interested, I have some left, so don't hesitate to send me a mail about that. You have my contacts on the first slide. So there you have, for example, how to make a language passport with your pupils. So how to list the languages they speak and what is the importance of those languages in their lives, for example. The main aim of the project is at the end to create a safe environment for pupils at school. And so our main purpose is to provide tools to teachers to support all their pupils and help them realize their full potential. And that's often a problem with migrant pupils, is that we have a lower expectation for them, and the idea here is to help them realize all they can do. And so for that we act at the teachers level, and doing so the idea is to help them adapt their teaching to specific needs. That's the whole differentiation part. To be aware of biases, and notably in assessment, and to improve their practices. And we hope that the effects of those tools for teachers will be to allow pupils to cultivate their one's own identity, to receive the permission to be themselves, and to value and transmit to others, to other pupils, their own culture and their own language. So the idea is to create in schools a multicultural and multilingual environment where everyone can be what he or she wants. And you have some concrete tips on the website to do so. Those are from the Rutu Foundation, which is a foundation in the Netherlands active in the welcoming of migrant pupils at school. And you have some pieces of advice to concretely for activities that concretely make use of the home languages of the pupils in the classroom. You will receive all those slides, I think. One important topic is also to act on the intercultural competencies level, and notably of the teachers. And we all have stereotypes and biases, and that's normal. So the way a human being is reflecting on the world, and it all depends on the experience and relationships and the people you know and the people you met and so on. And it's known by scientific literature that more we went to foreign countries, more we met different kind of people, less stereotypes we have. So it's also a question of experience you have gained during your life, and it's not per se a problem if you have stereotypes and biases. It become a problem, it become harmful if you don't realize you have stereotypes and biases, and if you don't fight those biases you have. And so our aim is to bring teachers' stereotypes to light, to make them be aware of the stereotypes they have and of the influence that might have on pupils' assessment, for example. And in that respect, some schools are more dynamic than others. I'm sure the sanctuary schools are a bit more aware of those type of reflection than other, for example. But if you are the only teacher or the only team of teacher in your school starting that reflection, it's already something. and it's the first step to make the school as a whole a bit more aware of those kind of biases, notably in expectations. I was talking about that sooner. So, okay, it's a migrant pupil. He or she doesn't master the language of schooling enough. Okay, no problem. That will be an excellent cook. Why not? But why not a lawyer? Why not a doctor? Why not something else? And those type of biases have influence. So be aware of that is also a way to define with the pupil what he or she wants to do, and what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how to go together to the full potential of that pupil. You have here some good practices about intercultural competencies linked to stereotypes, and also to, for example, how to make how to ensure a welcoming atmosphere in your school, for example. Two other main points. The first one is the policy part, and why involving authorities? Because we see also among our partners that in Europe you have two main ways of integrating migrant pupils. You have the reception classes system, so migrant pupils are excluded of the mainstream education for 1 year or two to meet their special needs. That's a good idea, maybe. Or you have the second system, which is direct immersion, like in the UK, for example, or Ireland. So you don't have welcome classes. You have directly you put directly the pupils in the same classroom than others, and that's also helpful to make contacts, to meet locals, but then you have to accompany them in the right way. And for example, in Spain, you have direct immersion, but with less support than in the UK, for example. And so one of our aim for the next 3 years is to compare the two systems and to identify the good points and the less good points of those two ways of supporting migrant pupil. And that's meant to help local and European authorities to make the right decisions. So we want to study those systems, to document those systems, to gather data from schools and teachers, to be able to say, okay, that's a nice system for those reasons, and that's a bit less efficient for those reasons. And the aim is not that all European countries are functioning the same way, but that they can correct the weaknesses, that they can compensate the weaknesses of the system they are in. And we want also to inventory resources, and notably informal actors. In some countries, you have a bit more of those informal actors, youth centers, and access to the local cultural events, and access to youth movements, and so on. So depending on the country, on the region, on the situation, on the school, sometimes you have more or less links to other informal education actors around the school. And so one of the things we want to do in the 3 coming years is to inventorize those actors, to make the school able to talk with them a bit more, if it's not the case already. And what we did, and what you have on the website, are the country reports. So then you see Netherlands, Flanders, and French-speaking Belgium. We also have Spain, and we will have Ireland. So what we do is to introduce the system of a country. You have Finland too. So we ask partners to write reports with actual data to be able to present the system and how it works in their country or region to the others. And so based on those reports and further investigation, we will be able to compare the different systems. And the last point is about involving stakeholders, involving parents, including families into the school system. And it's also proven by scientific research that a real sustained and good quality relationships between the school and the parents is a factor of success. So the best pupil you will have, so the best relation you have with the parents, the best pupil you will have. But creating and maintaining this relationship is sensitive and difficult, and we don't have the solution. But a way could be to use resource people in the different communities of the parents, and that's that can be negotiated. Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it will be seen as an intrusion. So it's a very sensitive topic, and the miracle solution doesn't exist. But what we do in that case is to offer you some questions. So we have a page on the website with questions you can ask yourself to see, okay, do I involve the parents enough? What is the relationship I maintain with the parents? And so those are more reflection tools. So it's not the solution, it's not an advice, it's not a ready-made way to solve your problem, but it is more, in this case, a question list to help you see what your situation is and how you deal with that issue right now, and maybe how you can deal with that issue in the future. So what are the possibilities? And we believe that this work of self-reflection, okay, what's my current situation? Who are the crucial stakeholders? Who are the crucial actors involved in the problem? What are the real issues there? And how do I deal with those situations is the first step to be able to solve the problem. So that's why those questions are meant. So what are my expectations? What is my relation to parents right now? How can I, what did I try in the past? What was successful? Why maybe a bit less? And what could I try in the future? So the self-reflection can be the first step, let's say, and we did in the past, and we will continue to do so to support teachers and authorities also with self-reflection tools, and by asking you to put yourself the right questions. That's a bit the idea. And about questions, if you have some questions for the Q&A, don't hesitate to do so. And many thanks to the organizers of this seminar.
Thank you so much, Marie, for your presentation. I think it was very complementary with the previous one, and both of us very insightful indeed when it comes to creating safe, inclusive, and caring environments for all, and for migrants and refugee students in particular. You could see all that the EDINA project has a series of very relevant resources, so we encourage you to go to the webpage and explore them further. If you have questions, as Marie mentioned, you can write her directly. It's the same actually from from the Schools of Sanctuary side, Tiffy is very much available, and her colleagues to engage in conversations with you or to answer your questions by email, even if you are interested in implementing something similar and in your context and you need advice. Please contact. I will put Tiffy's email right now in the chat, and Marie, even if you have it in your slide, if you can put it in the chat, that would be great. So we are a little bit late, but I think we are having an interesting conversation, and it's important also to have a look at the questions that have been arriving in the chat. And we have a first question from Patricio. Hi, Patricio. That I think I will give the floor to Martin to answer, and then if other colleagues are interested, you can also come in. So the question is, how are the first moments organized when many students of different nationalities and different languages arrive? Does it contain any program or support personnel for these functions?
Sure, that's a very good question, and thank you for it. The first point of contact for students maybe who are going to learn English is going to meet what we call their English as an additional language teacher. And that will be Martina, will be one of those that you met on the video earlier this afternoon. And they would work with those children for a short period of time. But as Marie mentioned in her own presentation, we go to direct immersion very, very quickly, because students learn by asking others, what time is it? Where's the dining room? Where's the PE hall? And getting an ordinary everyday conversation by being fully immersed in the classroom setting. In order for teachers to communicate effectively with these students, we often use Microsoft Live Present function within PowerPoint, which means that the students scan a code from the screen in front of them, and then choose the language on their phone that they want what the teacher is saying to be communicated directly into that language on their phone, so they can understand exactly what the teacher is saying in the classroom. And we have found that to be an extremely effective tool in communicating with students. We don't expect students to be able to follow the lessons or in to the same degree as other students. So very often for homework, the assignment is very frequently when they get into school after a few weeks, is to simply repeat what took place during the class during the day, and that that repetition will support their own English language development. So it is a question of being fully submerged in the class at the beginning, but at the same time there are people there with you. The English language teacher will often sit with you in those classes, whether it's a science class or a business class, and a teacher will be often there just to support you through that. So while it is demanding, but it's also one which encourages social conversation and enables new friendships to be developed, which is really key to Sanctuary.
Thank you so much, Martin. In the meanwhile, there is a question on the translation tool that you mentioned in the chat. So if you can write the name of it, of the tools that you are using, sure, it would be great. And now we have a second question, and I think the last one, because we received also a comment on the language passport, just an observation. But the second question is connected to the Greek case, where according to one of the participants, teachers of German or French language, for instance, they cannot teach refugees or they cannot teach in schools where refugee children go. Only Greek teachers can do that. And I know Tiffy has an example when it comes to this question. And also I would invite Tiffy to make a comment on Marie's presentation, especially at the end when Marie was talking about parental involvement and potential solutions. Tiffy also has some experiential knowledge to share. So Tiffy, if you can address the first question on the language teachers and who can teach and who cannot teach, and then go to the parental involvement, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Cosmin, and thank you everybody for the really interesting questions, and indeed to Mary for that very, very fascinating presentation. So yeah, just regarding the teachers from other countries, let's put it this way. So here in Ireland, I think as Martin was saying earlier, you know, immigration is quite new of people coming into Ireland. Traditionally, it was something, let's say in the 20th century, generally, it was Irish people going to other countries. And it's been comparatively recently that we've had, compared to our fairly small population, I suppose, significant numbers of people coming for a variety of reasons, including refugees. But whereas, for example, in the hospitals, you can see the way the demographic of hospital workers at all levels is really varied, and it's clear that there are many migrants working in hospitals. In schools, it is not like that. You know, it is nearly all Irish teachers, and there are significant barriers there. For example, in primary schools, you would normally need to be proficient in the Irish language to teach in a primary school. So that's obviously a barrier for even somebody whose English is really good from another country. But there is something that's come up in the last few years called the Migrant Teacher Project. And my observation among the schools that I'm working in is that there are more and more opportunities. It's a trickle, you know, but we are seeing, just as in, for example, Olga, this lady who got a job teaching EAL in one of the schools of Sanctuary the other day. So the Migrant Teacher Project is helping. The shortage of teachers is helping, funnily enough. And also, I think more and more schools are seeing the benefit of people who have varied backgrounds and of students seeing peers in teaching position. So that's helping as well. But it's slow. I hope that answers the question. And the second question was about parents. Yeah. So I didn't mention this earlier, but parental involvement and making schools welcome for parents is one of the key things in our schools of Sanctuary. And it begins with the welcome and the booklet of welcoming. And very often it has been students who speak other languages who drive the translation of welcoming materials. It's maybe been students who are very involved in art who make the welcome materials more visual. But also a lot of our schools love having international celebrations of all the different cultures that are in the school. And that's a real opportunity for parents to come in. And like with so many things, food is such an important tool of Sanctuary, you know, and it's so lovely to see a mum from Afghanistan who has never gone to school and who speaks only a little bit of English coming into school and be surrounded by an international group of students, and she's showing them with just her few words, and maybe somebody's translating bits, how to cook this absolutely delicious dish, and everybody's congratulating her, and it's just wonderful. So that's a great way that we've seen parents getting involved with lots of variations on that theme. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tiffy. Since we are a little bit beyond the time of the webinar, I think we can soon close. We have a few other comments in the chat, and I find one of them particularly interesting coming from Lucinda, who is sharing that right now in Portugal, it is so difficult to deal with the diversity of students who arrive. So then my advice for for Lucinda would be to contact Tiffy and the Schools of Sanctuary and discuss a little bit more their challenges and potential solutions. And perhaps this idea of the sanctuary can be then internationalized or inter-Europeanized to other countries. And also to say that I think it became visible from the comments that we received during the webinar that there are certain barriers when it comes to migrant and refugee children that are very much systemic, and we cannot change them very easily. But I believe what Tiffy and Martin's presentation and also Marie's project have shown is that when we are faced with such systemic challenges, we need to find creative ways of going around or surpassing these challenges and creating these caring environments. There are other barriers that are not so systemic. They might be even symbolic, like this issue of difficulty of certain groups of migrants, even when it comes to their professionalization, to become teaching staff or supportive staff in schools. Even if in some cases there is no concrete barrier, there are other symbolic barriers that hinder them of attaining certain positions. And there again is through this communication and this stakeholder involvement, the whole school approach that we can tackle this issue. And to finalize, I would like to mention that indeed, when we discussed the issue of migrant and refugee children, as Martin was mentioning, they come from doting experiences and challenges. There are places of great trauma, long journeys, and then this idea of finally arriving to a safe place is very, very important. I really like the fact that Martin mentioned that the curriculum is somehow secondary, because in these particular cases, the objective is different. It's first to create these sanctuaries, these safe learning environments, and we can worry about the curricula and the learning outcomes a little bit further up. It doesn't mean that they are not important, but the priorities are a little bit different from other children. And of course, the issue of stereotypes and biases that Marie very well covered in her presentation is also very important. We know that very often as teachers, we are very well intentioned, but our own biases are there, and we are not very, very aware of them. They are not visible to us. And sometimes we can engage in very harmful pedagogical practices without wanting to do so, and realizing it only at a later stage. And I believe that today we really heard very, very important insights on how to avoid these and how to create this safe, inclusive, and caring learning environment. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us today, to thank Tiffy, Martin, and Marie for their very insightful presentations, and to reiterate their availability for further questions through email, and also to remind you that you will receive a follow-up message to the webinar, to a website on the European School Education Platform, where the presentations will be made available, the recording of the webinar will be made available, and I would imagine the video from Martin's school as well. So thank you all, and have a great afternoon or rest of the day.